reaction to yesterday's explosive testimony from Canadian diplomat Richard Colvin. It has prompted the NDP to call for a public inquiry into the alleged torture of Afghan detainees handed over by Canadian troops. The story has some asking whether Canada could be charged with a war crime. To help us answer some of these questions, I'm joined by Payam Akhavan, a professor of international law at McGill University, a former UN war crimes prosecutor as well, I might add. And I want to talk about this with you, Payam, because this stood out for me in that NDP news conference. They suggested Canada could face allegations of violations of human rights. What do you make of that?
Well, we have to bear in mind that the Canadian forces are operating under very difficult circumstances in Afghanistan, and in particular the prison system in Afghanistan is far from adequate. But at the same time, there are certain obligations which Canada has under the Geneva Conventions. And it's very clear that handing detainees over to the prison authorities, knowing that they will be tortured, if those allegations are true, that these could most definitely constitute violations of the Geneva Conventions. And I would go further and say that under the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes Act, which Canada adopted in the year 2000, that Canadian courts have jurisdiction over crimes even when committed abroad. And we have to take very seriously these allegations, not to politicize them, but to make sure that we get to the bottom of it through a full, independent and impartial inquiry. And nothing less than Canada's international reputation is at stake.
You know, that's what I was going to ask you about, is the reputation of Canada. We have been known for for fighting for human rights in other countries. Having some kind of a stain, I suppose, on our reputation, if this were to lead down that road, would be mind-boggling for me and for many Canadians.
Well, I think that the point is not, the point is that we have to make sure that international law is respected. The forces of even the best armies in the world can commit violations of humanitarian law. The point is that instead of a cover-up, there must be a full and proper inquiry with a view to correcting whatever behavior needs to be corrected, and with a view potentially to holding accountable those that are responsible. We know from the case of Guantanamo Bay the tremendous damage that did to the legitimacy of the United States.
Oh, absolutely.
And the unfortunate reality is that the power of a country is dependent in large part on its legitimacy, in particular a country like Canada, and our ability to promote human rights abroad will be seriously undermined if we do not take this challenge seriously. And if I may add,
sure,
the issue here is obviously not that the Canadian government or the Canadian forces have any intention for torture to be committed. I don't think that's an issue. The issue is whether by knowingly handing over these individuals, we are unwittingly aiding and abetting or making a substantial contribution to the commission of war crimes.
Although if you knowingly hand someone over into torture, a situation of torture, is it an unwitting act? I mean, I don't want to get bogged down in the legalities, but I'm just wondering about that phrase.
Well, let me be perfectly clear. The law on aiding and abetting is that even if an individual does not have the intention to commit a crime, if he or she knowingly makes a substantial contribution to the commission of that crime, then that person can be held liable. So the issue here is knowledge.
Yes.
That if we know that by handing these people over, they will be tortured, then there is a potential basis for criminal liability. But I want to make very clear that I'm here only to speak about the law, and I'm not in any position to say anything about the factual allegations that have been made. That is a matter for an independent and impartial commission of inquiry.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing that point forward. I do want to ask you one question. Having been through the trenches, if you will, what is the greatest challenge, Payam, in trying to get to the bottom of these kinds of allegations for calling for a public inquiry?
Well, one of the challenges is to have a process which is not politicized, and that this commission of inquiry is not used to score points along political lines. This is really a matter of genuine national interest. And on the one hand, we have to support our soldiers that are sacrificing their lives in Afghanistan. There should be no doubt about that. But that does not mean that we advocate a culture of impunity for violations of humanitarian law. We have to support our forces in Afghanistan. They're doing a very important job. But we also have to understand that the ends don't justify the means. And that whatever we're doing in Afghanistan has to be done in compliance with humanitarian law. And if Canada cannot be an example for the rest of the world on that front, then I think we are in a very desperate situation indeed.
Payam Akhavan, great to have you on the program, and I'm glad you took the time from Montreal.
Thank you.